When Charles, an 87-year-old man, fell ill, he never imagined the one person he'd devoted his life to would turn her back on him. Meet Charles, a man of kindness and generosity, a beacon of love in the lives of those around him. His heart, however, held a special place for his only granddaughter, Olivia. When Charles fell sick, it wasn't the illness that pained him, but the cold rejection from the one he loved the most. Olivia, the girl he'd raised as his own, the girl he'd showered with affection, refused to care for him. Charles was left alone, his days growing darker. But it wasn't the loneliness that shocked him. It was the realization of Olivia's true nature. He saw a girl who had taken advantage of his kindness, a girl whose warmth had turned into icy indifference. Charles was left heartbroken, but he didn't let the sadness consume him. Instead, he decided to use his final days to impart one last lesson to Olivia, a lesson she'd only discover after he was gone. Olivia, on the other hand, was a girl who had experienced the harsh realities of life at a tender age. Orphaned at 4, she was a quiet child, her heart scarred by the loss of her parents. Charles had tried his best to fill the void, to give Olivia the love and care she needed, but the trauma had left its mark, and as Olivia grew up, she became more withdrawn, struggling to connect with others. At 16, Olivia chose to leave her grandfather's home, seeking independence and a life of her own. Charles, though concerned, respected her decision, hoping that she'd find her way. But as the years passed, Olivia's life took a downward spiral. She pushed away those who cared about her, including Charles. The only time she reached out to him were when she needed money. Charles, despite knowing it wasn't right, gave her the money, longing to see her, to ensure she was okay. Charles, resolved and determined, began to devise a plan that would only come to light after his death. A plan that he hoped would make Olivia understand the value of love and kindness. A plan that would change her life forever. As Charles closed his eyes for the last time, his final act was set in motion. With Charles's passing, Olivia was left with an unexpected void. She had always assumed that the old man would be around, a constant presence from whom she could expect aid whenever she needed. But with his departure, her safety net was gone. A few days after his funeral, she found herself in a notary's office. Expecting to inherit her grandfather's wealth, she was instead handed a letter. It was a simple envelope, worn around the edges, with her name scrawled across in Charles's familiar handwriting. In this letter was not a will, not a bequeathal of riches, but something far more profound. It was a testament of Charles's love for his granddaughter, a carefully crafted narrative intended to teach Olivia a life-altering lesson. Charles wrote of his disappointment not in Olivia's refusal to care for him, but in her refusal to care for herself. He spoke of her self-imposed isolation, her retreat from the world, and her unwillingness to seek help. He wrote of his concern for her well-being, his sleepless nights worrying about her future. He spoke of love, understanding, and most importantly, of forgiveness. In this letter, Charles didn't berate Olivia for her actions. Instead, he encouraged her to learn from her past, to grow, to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable, to seek help when needed, to let people in. He wrote of the importance of love and compassion, of the power of kindness and forgiveness. He urged her to live a life filled with love, not just for others, but for herself too. As Olivia held the letter in her trembling hands, she felt a lump in her throat. The weight of her grandfather's words bore down on her. She felt a mix of guilt, regret, and a strange sense of relief. Charles had not left her alone. He had left her with a roadmap, a guide to navigate the labyrinth of her life. As Olivia unfolded the parchment, she was yet to realize that her grandfather's words would change her life forever. To understand the depth of Charles's disappointment, one must delve into Olivia's past. Once upon a time, Olivia was just a young girl, her world brimming with vibrant hues of innocence and joy. But when she was merely 4 years old, a tragic car accident claimed the lives of her parents, leaving her under the care of her loving grandfather, Charles. This unexpected calamity cast a long, dark shadow over Olivia's childhood, transforming her from a lively child to a quiet, reserved girl, her laughter replaced by silence, her smiles by stoic expressions. Charles, a man of immense strength and resilience, stepped up to the challenge of raising his granddaughter. He became the lighthouse in Olivia's stormy world, guiding her through the tumultuous sea of her grief. He tried his utmost to fill the gaping void left by her parents' departure, providing not just material needs but also emotional support. Despite his age, Charles was determined to give Olivia a life full of love and comfort. However, as Olivia blossomed into adolescence, she began to retreat further into her shell. The trauma of her past had left an indelible mark on her soul, causing her to distance herself from others. She found it hard to connect with people, to share her feelings, to let them in. Charles, ever the caring guardian, urged her to seek therapy and find a path to healing. But Olivia felt trapped in her sorrow, ensnared by the chains of her past. When she turned 16, Olivia made a decision that shocked Charles. She chose to move out and live with a boyfriend, seeking independence and a chance to escape her past. Charles, though worried, respected her decision. But as time passed, Olivia's isolation deepened, and her relationship with Charles started to fray. She pushed him away, hiding her unhappiness and loneliness from him. Charles, missing his granddaughter terribly, could only watch as she drifted further away. Despite Charles's best efforts, Olivia chose a path of solitude and distance, unknowingly setting the stage for her grandfather's profound lesson. As Olivia grew older, her relationship with Charles dwindled to a series of cold, distant encounters. The once vibrant and loving connection they shared was replaced with a chilling silence. Their conversations, once filled with laughter and shared stories, were now reduced to terse exchanges, often revolving around Olivia's needs rather than a genuine interest in her grandfather's well-being. Olivia, in her pursuit of independence, distanced herself from her grandfather. She traded the warmth of family for the cold comfort of solitude. Her visits to Charles became sporadic, often prompted by a need for financial aid rather than a desire to spend time with him. Charles, on the other hand, yearned for the old days. He missed the lively chatter, the shared meals, and most of all, he missed his granddaughter's radiant smile. The house, once filled with the echoes of Olivia's laughter, was now silent, a constant reminder of her growing indifference. Yet, despite the widening chasm between them, Charles never ceased to care for Olivia. His heart ached at the sight of his granddaughter's indifference, but he held on to the hope that she would eventually realize the importance of their relationship. He continued to support her, both emotionally and financially, even though his generosity was met with cold detachment. In his heart, Charles knew that Olivia was struggling. He understood that her behavior was a manifestation of her unresolved grief and isolation. He longed to help her, to guide her through the storm that was her life, but Olivia had built walls around herself that Charles found hard to penetrate. It was a strained relationship, marked by unspoken words and missed opportunities. Yet, amidst the tension, Charles's love for his granddaughter never wavered. He continued to hope that one day, Olivia would break free from her self-imposed isolation and return to him, not out of necessity, but out of love. Charles, despite his disappointment, continued to care for Olivia, hoping she would one day understand the value of their bond. In the silence of Charles's empty home, Olivia finally understood the lesson her grandfather had left behind. The letter, penned in Charles's shaky handwriting, was a testament to his love and his disappointment. The words were gentle yet firm, a plea from a man who had given everything, only to be cast aside in his hour of need. Charles wrote about the values he had tried to instill in Olivia: kindness, empathy, and love. He recounted the countless times he had been there for her, the sacrifices he had made, and the love he had showered upon her. But Charles also wrote about the heartbreak he felt when Olivia turned her back on him. The letter served as a mirror, reflecting Olivia's actions and attitudes back to her. She was forced to confront the reality of her selfishness, of her disregard for the one person who had always been there for her. The words stung, but they also opened her eyes. Charles's letter was not just a rebuke, but also a guide. He urged Olivia to change, to embrace the values he had tried to teach her, to learn from her mistakes. He wanted her to understand that love and kindness were not burdens, but gifts. He implored her to treasure the relationship she had, to value the love she received, and to give it back in kind. As Olivia read the letter, a change began to take place. She understood the significance of her actions, the pain she had caused, and the lessons she needed to learn. The selfish, isolated young woman began to transform. She started reaching out, mending relationships she had severed, and opening herself up to others. She began to embrace the values her grandfather had tried to instill in her. Olivia started to understand the importance of love, kindness, and empathy. She started to change. In the absence of her grandfather, Olivia found a path to redemption and a newfound appreciation for the love and care she had taken for granted.